Kevin's name lit up my phone at 11:47 p.m. I didn't answer. My apartment was quiet in that late-night way that doesn't feel peaceful. It feels like the world is moving without you. The refrigerator hummed. Rain tapped the window. A siren passed somewhere far away, softened by distance like even emergencies knew not to bother me. His name kept glowing. Kevin. 1 year. Exactly 1 year since he left the city and took the softest part of me with him. Without meaning to. Without noticing. Like people do when they love themselves more than they love the people who hold them up. I stared at the screen until it stopped ringing. Then I went to the kitchen, poured water into the kettle, watched it heat, watched steam rise and curl like a ghost trying to leave my apartment. Only then did I pick up. Hello? There was silence at first, like he didn't expect me to answer. Then his voice came through, soft, rough at the edges, familiar enough to make my throat tighten. Evelyn, he said. He said my name like it still belonged to him. I think I made a mistake. And my mind didn't flash to the day he left. It flashed to the year after. To the nights I came home and ate dinner with the TV on because silence felt like drowning. To the mornings I woke up and reached for my phone before I remembered there would be nothing. To the way loneliness doesn't scream. It just sits beside you like it paid rent. I didn't cry. That was the worst part. I met Kevin in a building that always smelled like burnt coffee and printer ink. Glass walls, marble floors, people walking fast like they were chasing importance. Kevin didn't walk like that. He walked like someone who was thinking about something else. The first time I saw him clearly was in the elevator. It was early. I remember because my coffee was still too hot, and my fingers still smelled like vanilla from the hand cream I used whenever I felt nervous. The elevator doors opened and he stepped in like he'd been pushed into the world mid-thought. Dark hair, slightly messy but not careless, a sharp jaw softened by tiredness, hazel eyes that held gold in them when the light hit just right, like autumn leaves refusing to disappear. He stood beside me without looking. The elevator moved. I stared straight ahead like a normal person. At the 10th floor, someone got off and the elevator jolted slightly. His shoulder brushed mine. "Sorry," he murmured. His voice was calm, quiet, not flirty, just contained. "It's fine," I said. Silence. Then, right before my floor, he glanced at me and smiled. Not a big smile, just a small curve of his lips, like he'd decided I was safe enough to acknowledge. That smile did something to my chest that I couldn't explain. After that, I started arriving earlier. Not to see him, just in case. We didn't become friends in a dramatic way. No big moment. No, we should hang out. We became familiar. A nod in the lobby, a polite morning, a shared elevator ride where our eyes met for half a second, then looked away. Then one day, we ended up at the vending machine at the same time. He pressed the button for the same canned coffee, watched it drop, picked it up with the same bored familiarity. "You actually like that one?" I asked before I could stop myself. He glanced at me, surprised. "Yeah," he said. "It's consistent." "Consistently bad," I said, and my voice came out warmer than I intended. He exhaled through his nose, almost a laugh. "It does its job." I hesitated. "I'm Evelyn." He looked at me properly then, hazel eyes holding mine like he was actually paying attention. "Kevin," he said. That was it. 2 names. But it landed like a beginning. From then on, we started sharing coffee breaks. Sometimes we talked. Sometimes we didn't. And the silence never felt awkward. It felt like sitting beside someone on a train who didn't ask you to perform. "You're early again," he said one morning, glancing at my watch instead of my face. "I like quiet," I told him. He nodded. "Me too." Then, after a beat, "It's rare." I didn't ask what he meant. Something about him made me careful. Like if I asked too much, he'd disappear. The first contradiction. I wanted him close. I was afraid of what closeness would cost. I loved Kevin in small ways that didn't look like love if you weren't the one doing it. I remembered how he took his coffee. Black, no sugar. So when I passed the cafe downstairs, I'd grab one and leave it on his desk with a sticky note. Stop drinking the vending machine sludge. He never said much about it. Just looked at it, then looked at me. You didn't have to, he said. I know, I replied, too quickly. You look like you're surviving on spite. That time he laughed for real. It made me feel stupidly proud, like I'd earned something. Kevin talked sometimes about leaving the city. Not with excitement, with restlessness, like the city was a shirt that didn't fit right. I don't want to wake up one day and realize I settled, he said once. We were in a conference room after work. The lights were dim. The city outside looked like a glittering lie. I get it, I said. I meant it. But my stomach dropped anyway, because I heard what he didn't say. I'm not staying. I should have protected myself then. Instead, I built more of myself around him. Because love, quiet love, doesn't announce itself. It just becomes your routine. The winter I realized I was already too deep was the day I forgot my gloves. Wind cut between buildings like it was looking for weakness. The bus stop was crowded, people huddled and annoyed. My hands were red and numb. I shoved them into my coat sleeves like a child. Kevin stood beside me, coat zipped to his chin, hair damp from snow. You're shaking, he said. I'm fine, I lied. He didn't argue. He just took one glove off and held it out. You'll lose circulation, he said. And you? I asked. His eyes flicked to my hands, then away. I'm used to it. I took it, warm from his hand. It smelled faintly like peppermint gum and clean fabric. My fingers tingled as warmth returned, and my heart did something pathetic, like it believed this meant something bigger than it did. Thanks, I said. He shrugged. Don't mention it. I turned slightly and our eyes met. His hazel looked gold under the streetlight. I wanted to tell him then. I wanted to say, I think I'm falling for you. But fear lived in my throat. Fear of ruining what we had. Fear of being looked at with polite pity. Fear of hearing, Evelyn, you're like a sister. So I stayed silent. And he stayed silent too. Two quiet people building a tragedy without meaning to. Kevin talked to me about women sometimes. Not to hurt me, just because he didn't understand what he was doing. She's nice, he'd say. But I don't feel it. My heart would hold its breath, waiting for the rest, waiting for him to say, but with you. He never did. One day he mentioned a name I hadn't heard before. Lena, he said casually, stirring his coffee. She's in strategy, different floor. I tried to sound normal. Oh. She's ambitious, he added, like that was a compliment and a warning all at once. Is that what you like? I asked, smiling like it didn't matter. Kevin's eyes flicked to mine. I don't know, he said quietly. Maybe I like people who want more. My smile stayed on my face. Inside, something sank, because I had spent months being easy for him. Quiet, supportive, safe. I was the place he rested. Lena was the place he was going. He started disappearing in small ways before he left in big ones. He'd answer texts slower. He'd cancel coffee breaks. He'd show up in the elevator with his jaw tight and his gaze elsewhere. I've been busy, he said. I know, I replied. That's what I always said. Then one evening, Mina, my friend from HR, loud and warm and allergic to denial, caught me staring at my phone. Tell me you're not waiting for Kevin, she said flatly. I blinked. I'm not. Mina leaned on my desk. Ev, you look like a person standing at a bus stop with no schedule. I laughed once. It sounded wrong. It's not like that. She sighed. You're too pretty to be this sad. I hated when people said that. Like beauty was supposed to protect you. My eyes were dark brown, almost black in low light. Big enough that people always assumed I was innocent. My hair was long and straight, and always fell neatly even when I didn't try. My face had softness that made strangers comfortable, and none of it saved me from loving someone who didn't look back. Mina softened. Just be careful, okay? Guys like that, they don't mean to break you. They just don't notice they're holding you. I swallowed. She was right. That didn't change anything. Kevin left in spring, but before he left the city, he betrayed me first. Quietly, without calling it betrayal. We were on the rooftop after work, wind tugging at my hair, city lights flickering below. He leaned on the railing, eyes distant. I got an offer, he said. My stomach dropped. I forced a smile. That's amazing. It's in another city, he added. I nodded. When? Soon, he said. A month, maybe less. Silence. I waited, stupidly, for him to say he didn't want to leave me. He didn't. Instead, he said, Lena's going too. I froze. He glanced at me like he'd just realized he'd said something sharp. She got offered as well, he said quickly. Same program, same team. My mouth went dry. Oh, I managed. Kevin looked away. It's easier if you know someone. I nodded like a machine, but my mind flashed to all the mornings I arrived early for him, all the coffee I bought, all the silence I kept so I wouldn't scare him away. And the person he chose to walk into the future with wasn't me. It was someone who looked like ambition. I should have been angry. Instead, I felt embarrassed, like I had misread everything. Kevin turned toward me then, voice softer. You're quiet. I'm thinking, I lied. He hesitated. Evelyn, you're important to me. That sentence should have healed something. It made me feel worse. Because important is what you say when you don't want to say, I love you. He reached out, and for a second I thought he might touch my hand. He didn't. He put his hands back in his pockets like he was afraid of what his body might confess. I don't want to lose you, he said. My chest tightened. He didn't mean lose me as in choose me. He meant lose me as in lose his safe place. I smiled anyway, because my mouth betrayed me like my heart did. You won't, I said. That was the moment I realized the cruelest thing about Kevin. He didn't want to hurt me. He just wanted to keep me. And those aren't the same. The goodbye was small. A hug in the lobby. His arms around me felt familiar in a way that made my throat burn. Don't disappear, he murmured into my hair. I won't, I lied. He left the next morning, and the city didn't even pause. The year after Kevin left was the loneliest year of my life, not because something dramatic happened, because nothing did. The world kept moving. I got promoted 2 months after he left. People clapped for me in a conference room that smelled like cake and fake enthusiasm. You deserve this, Mina cheered. I smiled. Then I went home, took off my heels, and sat on the floor with my back against the couch because sitting on it felt like admitting I was alone. I stopped taking the elevator at 8:12. I stopped going to the vending machine. I stopped waiting for messages that didn't come. Sometimes Kevin would text. Not often. Just enough to keep a door cracked. How are you? Miss your advice. This place is intense. I would stare at the texts and feel my stomach twist, because he wanted me in pieces. A comforting voice, a familiar routine, a place to rest, while Lena was the one he built a life with. I answered anyway, because quiet love is stupid like that. One night, Mina found me in the break room staring at my phone. Don't, she warned. I'm not doing anything, I said. You are, she snapped. You're still letting him keep you in his pocket. I flinched like she slapped me. Mina sighed, softer. Ev, you deserve someone who chooses you loudly. I whispered. What if loud isn't real? Mina stared at me. Then find someone who's real. Nick arrived at the company in late summer. The day he walked in, the entire office seemed to inhale and forget how to exhale. New CEO, they whispered. Nick Armin. He didn't have the kind of charisma that demanded attention. He had the kind that made attention unavoidable. Tall, broad-shouldered, dark hair neatly kept. A face that looked like it had never had the luxury of being careless. Gray eyes, storm cloud gray, watchful, steady, sharp. When he spoke, his voice was calm. Good morning, he said. I'm Nick. I'm not here to disrupt what works. I'm here to understand what doesn't. People laughed nervously. I didn't. I watched him the way you watch an approaching weather system. Weeks later, I had to present a project to him. I was prepared. Polished. Halfway through, I paused. Just for a second, because one of the numbers felt wrong. No one else noticed. Nick did. You don't believe that figure, he said calmly. The room went silent. My heart dropped. I swallowed and corrected it, explained the flaw, offered a better projection. Nick nodded once. Good, he said. That's honesty. After the meeting, Jay, my coworker who always acted like he wasn't paying attention, whistled. You just survived, he muttered. Mina grabbed my arm. He noticed you. I don't care, I said too fast. But later, waiting for the elevator, Nick appeared beside me. Not too close. Not too far. You handled that well, he said. It didn't feel well, I replied. Most important things don't, he said. The elevator doors opened. We stepped in. Silence. Then, as the doors closed, he looked at me. You're not invisible, he said quietly. My throat tightened. I just learned how to be, I replied. Something shifted in his gaze. Not pity. Recognition. Nick started asking for my input more. Not in a favoritism way. In a he actually listened way. He'd send late-night emails. What's your honest read? If you were in my position, what would you change? At first I told myself it was professional. Then I noticed the pattern. He remembered what I said. He didn't interrupt me. If someone tried to talk over me in meetings, Nick would look at them. Just a look. And they'd stop. One day, after a brutal meeting, he caught me in the hallway. You okay? He asked. It was such a simple question. No one ever asked me that without wanting something. I said, yes. Nick studied my face. No, he said calmly. You're functioning. That's different. My throat tightened. I laughed once, broken. You're observant. I have to be, he replied. People lie constantly, especially to themselves. I couldn't tell if he meant me. I couldn't tell if I wanted him to. The office started talking. Rumors thrive on women who are visible. Mina warned me first. They think you're, you know. I frowned. Think I'm what? She leaned in. They think you're sleeping with him. I stared at her, then laughed, dry and disbelieving. That's insane. I know, Mina whispered. But you're suddenly in important meetings. You're getting visibility. It's because I work, I snapped. Mina's face fell. I'm on your side, Ev. Guilt flashed. Sorry, I can't do this again. Again. I didn't explain, because explaining meant admitting Kevin had trained me to feel ashamed of wanting anything. Then HR called me in. A complaint. That I was manipulating Nick for promotions. My blood went cold. My hands shook. I left the office and ran straight into Nick. He took one look at my face and said, Come with me. In his office, with the city glowing behind him, I forced the words out. They think I'm using you. Nick's jaw tightened. I think, he said slowly, people say that when they can't accept you earned your place. Tears burned behind my eyes. Nick stepped closer, not touching, just there. You don't have to fight this alone, he said. And something inside me cracked. Because Kevin had never said that. Kevin had only ever said, don't disappear. Like my existence was my responsibility alone. Kevin came back exactly 1 year later. I didn't expect it. Seeing him in the lobby felt like walking into a memory. Same face, slightly older expression, hazel eyes tired. He looked at me like he'd been starving. Evelyn, he said. My stomach turned. What are you doing here? I asked. He swallowed. I transferred back. Why? His voice cracked. Because I couldn't stop thinking about you. That sentence once would have destroyed me. Now it just made me tired. We met for coffee because part of me needed to prove he was real and not a ghost. He stared at his hands more than he stared at me. I made a mistake, he whispered. I thought leaving would make me feel alive, but everything felt hollow. I didn't respond. Kevin looked up, eyes wet. I tried to replace you, he said, and I hated myself for it. No one was you. I thought about Lena, about him choosing her and still texting me when he felt empty. That wasn't romance. That was selfishness, dressed as regret. Why did you keep texting me? I asked quietly. Kevin froze. Was it guilt? I pressed. Comfort? Habit? His throat bobbed. I missed you. I stared at him. You missed what I gave you, I said softly. Kevin flinched like I slapped him. I'm sorry, he whispered. My voice shook. I was lonely with you. His eyes widened. I didn't know, he said. That's the problem, I whispered. You didn't know because you didn't look. Kevin leaned forward like he was about to beg. I'm looking now, he said. I swear I am. My heart did something pathetic. It believed him, then it remembered the year. And it hardened again. Nick noticed, of course. He didn't confront me. He didn't compete. He just watched me the way he always did. Like he was trying to understand the storm inside me. One evening, he caught me leaving late. You've been distracted, he said. Just busy, I lied. Nick's gaze held mine. I'm not asking as your boss, he said. My stomach tightened. Then what are you asking as? He paused, choosing words carefully. As someone who's watched you hold your breath for a long time, he said. My throat tightened. I tried to laugh. Failed. Nick stepped closer. You don't owe me details, he said, but you owe yourself honesty. I hated how much that landed. Because Nick was right. Because Nick always was. Kevin tried harder after that. Messages. Calls. He showed up outside my building one night like a movie I didn't ask to star in. Evelyn, please, he said, voice breaking. I know I don't deserve you, but I can't accept that I ruined this. I stared at him under the streetlight. He looked beautiful in that tragic way that made people forgive him. Hazel eyes wet, jaw tight, hands shaking. And I thought, briefly, of the version of me who would have taken him back just to stop hurting. Then I thought about the year. About me sitting on my floor, eating cold noodles, staring at my phone. About him texting me from another city while Lena slept beside him. That was betrayal. Not loud. What did you tell Lena? I asked quietly. Kevin froze. Evelyn. What did you tell her? I repeated. His eyes darted away, and that answer told me everything. He wasn't here to love me properly. He was here to fix his guilt. I exhaled slowly. You don't want me, I said softly. You want to not be the villain in your own story. Kevin's face collapsed. That's not... It is, I whispered. He stepped closer, voice breaking. I'm scared. Of what? I asked. Of losing you. I laughed once, bitter. You already did. Kevin's breath hitched. He looked like he might fall apart on the sidewalk. For a second, I almost reached for him, because empathy is my curse. Then I stepped back. And that was the moment I chose myself. The office rumor mill didn't care about my pain. It cared about entertainment. Someone saw Kevin waiting for me outside the building. Someone saw Nick walking me to my car after a late meeting. Suddenly, people had a story. Jay cornered me in the hallway. So, he said, eyebrows raised, you dating the CEO or the golden boy? I stared at him. Neither. He laughed. Sure. Mina pulled me into the break room. Ev, she whispered. I heard Nick's board is watching you. My stomach dropped. Why? Because of Kevin, she said. People think he's your boyfriend, and they think Nick is making decisions based on that. Anger flashed. Not at Nick. At the world. At how a woman's competence always needed an explanation. Nick called me into his office the next day. He looked tired. Gray eyes sharp, jaw set. "They're discussing you," he said without preamble. I felt my chest tighten. "So, I'm a problem?" Nick's gaze snapped to mine. "No." He stood, walked around the desk closer than usual. "You're not a problem," he said, voice low. "You're an excuse. They want to believe you didn't earn it. Because if you did, it means they could have done more, and didn't." My throat tightened. I looked down. "I don't want to affect your career." Nick's mouth twitched. Half smile, half frustration. "You think I care about my career more than what's right?" he asked. I swallowed. "You're the CEO." Nick stepped closer. "I chose that role," he said. "I didn't choose to lose my spine." Silence. My heart pounded. Nick's gaze softened. "Tell me the truth," he said. "Do you want him back?" My breath caught. I didn't answer immediately. Then I said quietly, "I don't know what I want sometimes, but I know what I can't survive again." Nick nodded once. "That's enough," he said. "Kevin asked to meet me one last time." We sat in the same cafe we used to sit in before he left. He looked exhausted, like regret had finally caught up. "I saw you with him," Kevin whispered. "With who?" He didn't say Nick's name. He didn't have to. "You looked safe," Kevin said, voice breaking. "Like you weren't waiting for the floor to collapse." My throat tightened. Kevin stared at his hands. "I hate that I did this," he whispered. "I hate that I left and came back and expected you to still be there." I swallowed hard. "You don't get to expect that," I said softly. Kevin's eyes filled. "I don't want to be the lesson," he whispered. That sentence broke something in me. Not because I wanted him, because I remembered how much I once wanted him to want me. "I didn't disappear," I said, voice shaking. "I just lived without you. And it hurt so much I became someone else." Kevin flinched. "I tried," he said. "I really tried." "I know," I whispered. Not smug, just devastated. Kevin's breath hitched. "Do you hate me?" he asked. I looked at him for a long time. "No," I whispered. "And that's what makes it unfair." Kevin nodded slowly, like his body accepted what his heart couldn't. He stood up. His hands shook as he put on his coat. "I didn't understand quiet love," he whispered. "I thought it would wait forever." Then he walked out. And for the first time, I didn't chase him. Not because I was proud, because my legs wouldn't move. I sat there staring at the coffee cooling between my hands and felt something heavy leave my chest. Not love, but hope. Hope can be heavier than love. 2 weeks later, everything calmed down. Nick found me on the rooftop. The sky was violet. The city glowed beneath us. Wind brushed my hair back. He stood beside me without speaking, like he knew words would only get in the way. After a long silence, he said quietly, "I won't make you promise anything." I turned to look at him. His gray eyes were softer than usual, stormy, but steady. "I don't need to be chased anymore," I admitted. Nick stepped closer. "I don't chase," he replied. "I choose." My breath caught. The honesty of it felt blunt in the best way, like a hand on your shoulder saying, "Stop lying." I swallowed. "So choose me," I whispered. Nick's gaze held mine. "I already did," he said. My throat tightened. "And I'm tired of pretending I haven't." Silence. My heart pounded like it was trying to make up for a year of holding its breath. Nick lifted his hand slowly, giving me time to step away. I didn't. His fingers brushed my cheek. Warm. Careful. "You're going to break me," I whispered, and I hated how small my voice sounded. Nick's mouth curved slightly. "No," he said softly. "I'm going to keep you." Something in me cracked. Not in a broken way, in a relieved way. Nick leaned in, and when he kissed me, it wasn't desperate. It wasn't rushed. It was warm. Slow. Certain. A kiss that didn't ask. It stayed. I kissed him back with the kind of hunger that wasn't about lust. It was about finally being chosen. Nick rested his forehead against mine when we parted, breath slow. "Tell me to stop," he murmured. I swallowed, eyes burning. "I won't," I whispered. Nick's gray eyes softened further. "Good," he said. Then he kissed me again, a little deeper, like he'd been holding back for too long, and finally decided he was done being polite. My hand slid into his jacket, gripping fabric like I was afraid this was another dream that would end. Nick's arms wrapped around me, firm, protective, real. Not a hug in a lobby, not a goodbye. A stay. When we finally pulled apart, the city was still glowing below us, indifferent to my life, but I wasn't. Nick brushed a strand of hair behind my ear. "You're allowed to be happy," he said. I laughed softly, shaky. "I forgot that," I admitted. Nick's mouth curved. "Then I'll remind you," he said, and kissed my temple like it was a promise. And for the first time in my life, I didn't wait for love to be loud, because the quiet kind finally stayed.